Cool. So actually next we will have a special speaker. Daniel VF is going to talk to us about how to investigate what happened when you've been hacked.
Yeah, actually, slight change when somebody else has been hacked. And why is that valuable? Well, there's no better teacher than the enemy to start out with. And you learn real exploits. And there's a whole giant pile of exploits. You could write like 100 security vulnerabilities out. And auditors are really good at catching 50 or 60 or 70 or 80 of these. And can find them all the time. Automated tools can find them. But what you really care about are the ones that are likely to get past all the layers of defense, all the layers of checking things that you have. And that's the ones that actually get exploited. And so you're automatically following the latest advances in attacking contracts. You're only going to be one contract behind, or, the first time it happens, if you're following them, then you get to see what it is. The odds are that the first time an exploit's deployed, it's not going to be you. It's probably going to be some other protocol. So, you can add like a 90%, another layer of cheese, another thing that blocks 90% of attacks. If when somebody else is attacked, you study how it happened, and then you immediately turn around and check your own code for the same problem. And so that's what I've been doing for almost 2 years now, is anytime somebody gets hacked in the DeFi world, if it's more than $1 million and it's on Ethereum mainnet, I go in and try to understand it, as in right away, figure it out, and then check our own code. And that's tremendously valuable. And as I've been doing it, I've been getting faster and faster. And so I just want to share kind of how you can do that for your stuff. Now, attackers have lots of superpowers when they're attacking contracts. You think of a heist movie or something, and all the work that goes into before the heist. And a lot of that attackers get for free. They get to have a perfect copy of your environment. They get to see everything that's there without having to walk around your bank and scope it out. They get to see where all the defenses are. They get to practice against a perfect replica. And once they've practiced and found the perfect way in, they get to execute exactly that. And 95, 99% of the time, it goes perfectly for them. But you, as a detective, also have superpowers in that you can follow the exact trace of everything that happened down to every opcode that executed, every memory location that was accessed, every storage slot that was changed. So here's how you use it. In an attack, there's the attack contract, there's a victim contract, there's a flow of funds that happened during that attack, and then there's the execution trace. Now, if you actually look at an execution trace, or you actually look at the flow of funds, you'll see that it's usually way more complicated than that. There'll be AMMs involved, there'll be third-party DeFi protocols involved, there'll be flash loans, just a huge surrounding cloud of things. But in the reality, it all comes down to pretty much, you want to focus in on the attack contract, the victim contract, the flow of funds, and the execution trace. Now, where should you start in that? The execution trace is hands down the best place to start. It lets you see the big picture. The 4 tools I kind of recommend off the top of my head would be ethtx.info, which is my favorite usually. DDoB has a good execution tool. BlockSec team, I think, has a good tool. And I'm blanking on the 4th, but there are more out there. Oh, if you really have to, you can also run a fork against the contract like the block before, re-execute the attacker's thing, and figure it out all on your own computer. But anyway, so as I said, there's this huge mass of things that are actually in a hack in the execution trace or in the funds flow. But you can kind of simplify it down into that usually an attacker does something to get the funds that he's using, some kind of flash loans or something. Then there's the kind of the setup. Usually they need to, or get things in place. There's a moment when something goes wrong. And that's often like step 2 is to somehow throw the victim contract into a bad state. And then step 3 is exploit that bad state. And then step 4 is this whole unwind process, get back your funds and everything else. Of the code that's actually run, that first part and that last part you can often just skip when you're analyzing the attack to actually find what the vulnerability is. And so that cuts down tremendously what code you need to look at. So what you're really looking for is that first bit of weirdness, the first time things go wrong. And so if you're looking through the execution trace, all of a sudden, first we're talking about thousands of dollars, and all of a sudden you switch to millions of dollars. You want to find the very beginning of weird. And then once you've found that weird, then you kind of go to the victim contract and look and find out how that happened and why that happened. That's kind of the normal, typical flow. And after you've been doing it a while, very common patterns start showing up, and you can just see from the contract or the execution flow that, hey, this is a reentrancy thing. So that's kind of the normal way of you do it. Now, if you want to go to the next level, the really weird level, sometimes hacks get stopped before they ever happen. An attacker deploys an attack contract. People see it, and it gets stopped before it ever happens. Now, in that kind of situation, you don't have any execution flow. You don't have any funds flow. And until you figured out what the attack contract does, you don't even have a victim contract, really. So that's really playing on hard mode, but that's you need a decompiler, and you need to follow it, and that's a whole nother conversation for another day. But anyway, that's the quick thing. I think it's incredibly valuable to study hacks, and it's possibly the very best education you could have. Reports on hacks are sometimes wrong. Sometimes to a surprising degree. It really counts to look at it for yourself. One last advantage you get is you get a real sense of bad code smells, because you're reading through your own code, and all of a sudden, oh, this is like that hack I just saw, and then you can not do it. Thank you. I'm Daniel von Fange.
We have a couple minutes if you want to take questions. Yeah. So I have a question. What tools do you use for forking the chain if you want to look at it locally on your own computer?
So I am a huge fan of ETH Brownie. The amount you have to write compared to using something like Hardhat, you get to use giant numbers without any kind of extra anything. It automatically uses the address of things when you want it. So I use ETH Brownie for almost everything I do for fork-based testing or live interaction with contracts, also including testing our own contracts in a forked environment as well. I use other tools for building stuff, but for live interactions with contract, it's ETH Brownie all the way, every day.
Any other questions?
Yeah, go for it.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Tincho. Thank you for the talk. Nice. My question would be, first I should say, I super echo the fact that many reports of vulnerabilities are wrong. So it's crazy. And once you start following them, you actually understand that the team probably wasn't even understanding what was going on. So my question would be, why is that happening? From your experience, why do you think once we start actually going into details of the postmortems, we as independent security researchers realize that they are actually not stating the facts as they should be?
Well, I think that the reports are actually mostly right. It's just occasionally they're wrong. And so it's not a huge problem. It's just something that does happen, and be surprised by it. A lot of times it's because somebody takes the first look at it, makes a tweet about it, and people who haven't verified it, retweet it because it sounds plausible, and so it just spreads from there. Sometimes there's a wide variety of competence in teams, and some teams don't get it and never get it. But yeah.
All right. Thanks very much, Daniel.